Zarathek had never bowed to anyone. Not in 3 centuries of existence. Not through 17 successful campaigns across the galaxy. And certainly not to the pompous royalty who hired her services. The Vorthak assassin stood 7 feet tall, her chitinous exoskeleton gleaming with bio-augmentations that could slice through starship hulls. She was death incarnate, feared across 7 star systems. Yet here she was, on her knees in a cramped human dwelling, her razor-sharp claws trembling as she held a cup of something called tea. The human woman sitting across from her looked unremarkable by galactic standards. Small, soft-skinned, with graying hair pulled back in a simple knot. Sarah Chen wore a faded apron over equally faded clothes, her hands bearing the calluses of honest work. Nothing about her suggested she should command respect from the Council's most feared operative. "Drink up, dear," Sarah said gently, refilling Zarathek's cup. "You look like you need it." 3 hours earlier, Zarathek had materialized in this very kitchen, cloaking device deactivated, plasma blade humming with lethal energy. Her mission was simple: eliminate the human colony's unofficial leader before the upcoming council vote. Earth's expansion into this sector threatened too many established interests. She had expected guards, security systems, perhaps a futile last stand. Instead, she found Sarah Chen making dinner for 37 orphan children from across the galaxy. Human, Zelthani, even young Vorthak who had been abandoned by their warrior clans. "Oh my," Sarah had said, looking up from her pot of stew without flinching. "You must be here about the vote. Would you like something to eat? You've come such a long way." No target had ever offered Zarathek food before. Now, as she watched Sarah move efficiently around the kitchen, preparing meals with the precision of a master strategist, Zarathek began to understand why this human settlement had thrived where others failed. It wasn't superior technology or military might, it was something far more dangerous. "Masera!" A young Zelthani burst through the kitchen door, his blue scales darkened with distress. "Corvin took my homework crystal again." "And why do you think he did that, Finn?" Sarah asked, not breaking stride in her meal preparation. The child's antennae drooped. Because I called him stupid for not understanding the math problem." "And what do we do when someone's struggling? Help them?" Finn looked ashamed. "I'll go apologize and offer to study together." As the child scurried away, Sarah glanced at Zarathek. "Corvin's parents were killed in a mining accident on Kepler 442. He's brilliant, but trauma makes learning difficult. Finn there survived the plague on Zelthos Prime. Sometimes lashing out is easier than admitting you need help." Zarathek's grip tightened on her cup. She had caused both those tragedies. The mining accident had been her work, eliminating a supervisor who wouldn't take bribes. The plague had been a bioweapon deployment she'd facilitated. Yet here were the survivors, not seeking vengeance, but healing under this human's care. "You know who I am," Zarathek stated, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded, seasoning the stew with practiced ease. "Zarathek of the Obsidian Claws, the Council's finest killer, though I prefer to think of you as someone's daughter who lost her way." The Vorthak flinched as if struck. "I have no mother. Warriors of my clan emerge from breeding pools, yes, but someone still taught you to hold a blade, someone showed you how to move through shadows. Someone cared enough to train you, even if they couldn't show love the way other species do." Memories surfaced. Old Vextar, the clan instructor who had stayed after hours to perfect Zarathek's technique, who had smuggled her extra protein rations when she was small and struggling. He had died defending their homeworld while she was away on her first mission. "The Council fears this place," Zarathek said suddenly. "They fear you." Sarah laughed, a warm sound that seemed to light up the cramped kitchen. "Me? I'm just a retired teacher trying to keep some children fed." "No." Zarathek set down her cup and studied the human with new understanding. "You're building something they can't comprehend. Every child you save, every life you heal, you're proving their entire system wrong." Through the kitchen window, she could see the colony's main street. Humans worked alongside Corellians, their traditional enemies. Zelthani youngsters played with Vorthak children, species that had been at war for millennia. At the center of it all, the children from Sarah's makeshift orphanage served as bridges between communities, their bonds transcending ancient hatreds. The Council ruled through fear, through the idea that different species could never truly coexist. But this human woman had created something that threatened their very foundation, a place where their divisions meant nothing. "The vote tomorrow," Zarathek said. "They'll recognize your colony's independence if I complete my mission. And if you don't? They'll send a fleet, cleanse the entire sector." Sarah nodded calmly as if they were discussing the weather. "Then you have a choice to make, dear. You can preserve the system that created you, or you can help us build something better." As if summoned by their mother's quiet confidence, children began filtering into the kitchen, dozens of them, representing species from across the galaxy. They moved around Zarathek without fear, chattering in multiple languages, their easy acceptance more disarming than any weapon she had ever faced. A small human boy, no more than 6 years old, tugged at her chitinous arm. "Are you staying for dinner, Mrs. Zara? Miss Sarah makes the best stew in the whole galaxy." For the first time in 3 centuries, the Council's deadliest assassin felt her carefully constructed armor cracking, not from any external force but from something far more powerful, the simple revolutionary act of being welcomed home. Zarathek deactivated her weapons and slowly, deliberately, bowed to the human mother who had conquered her without firing a single shot. "I would be honored to stay for dinner," she said, and meant every word.